Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. We are approaching the business end of the VALORANT Masters tournament in the Swiss stage. Sentinels have officially locked their spot into the playoffs, as have one other very interesting team after some big results that went down last night. Drama happening elsewhere, though certainly with rumours around certain players, whether they could potentially return. But Sentinels giving their perspective too on how they got the victory last night and what they want to see going future into the playoffs and who they might want to play. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to dive into, starting really with here. There were rumours the other day around Leo and where Leo, if anywhere, could potentially be going. Now, Leo was rumoured it was mentioned by Tanmay the other day, who said that Leo has been trialling with a team, and then the tweet was deleted, but he said in the replies that no, like, this is, I think, happening. It's just, I'm not really sure where or when or with who or, whatever the case is as it presently stands. But as time has gone on, we've now started to hear some more rumours about this. And yesterday there was a rumour from, El Barco TH, who's put together some of these spreadsheets, as we like to see in the Valorant world, that maybe Leo could be there. Now, this is just a big rumour. It was obviously mentioned because Vitality was kind of struggling. Rumours on whether Safe or Kicks are going to stay or go. And therefore, kind of understandably, Leo was considered, at least given the rumours that we heard. Maybe that's where he could be ending up. But yesterday, Kojo, of course, Fnatic's team director, who loves to do these whole, false tweets or whatever, he decides to go a little bit more in depth here, and he says, I've never competed in the Olympics. Pokemon is more popular than Digimon. Leo isn't trialling for another team. Masters is in Toronto. Oh, sorry, just rattling off a bunch of obvious facts. Please stop tagging me. So, he throws that in there. Leo is not trialling for another team. So, it's interesting, right? Because Leo's still on Fnatic's situation. They've talked about wanting to bring him back at some point, but not obviously rushing that to be the case. But now that Fnatic seem pretty satisfied with Crashies, there's been lots of talk that if Leo is ready, then he might be potentially going elsewhere. Now, obviously, maybe Leo could be doing it behind his back, right? Like, I know there's some people that would suggest that maybe, Leo's just having a couple of words on the side that the Fnatic team doesn't necessarily know about, but I imagine they've had a conversation, they've made it pretty clear what the situation currently is. So, anyway, still wishing both parties the best, but the latest update is that no, Leo is not, we can't expect him to either return to Fnatic or leave to another team really anytime soon. And also, speaking of changes potentially to player personnel, Lakia is back. Now, Lakia had an issue with his wrist a little while ago, decided to take a little bit of time away, but he says, look, the wrist is fully healed, now stronger, more confident than I even was before, open to tryouts, can in-game lead if needed, fluent in English and Japanese, so, we'll see. Wishing Lakia the best, absolutely. He was getting lots of gas as well by his peers, as even Karon says, if I've got the chance, I'd want to do it with you again, of course. He was the best team member in the world, he says, and there was plenty of other gas that Lakia was getting yesterday too, so, wishing him the best going forwards. But let's talk about the matches that happened yesterday in the Masters Toronto tournament. This is kind of remarkable. Again, Texture got a nice little 4K, and then it all fell down on him. But Gen.G, yeah, they were really impressive yesterday. We know that Paper X, the train has been rolling. They looked like it was going to be a difficult train to stop, certainly after they started the tournament in the Swiss stage. But no, Gen.G handled business here emphatically. Texture is frustrated at losing another race, but Gen.G get the 2-0 dub. The Ascent, they eventually won 13-11, as we saw right there. They started off the game 7-0 on the attack, which is not something you often see. I know that Narrate, I think it was Narrate, was giving his thoughts, one of the Sentinels guys anyway, on the new patch and saying that they do much prefer it. The way that the game is now with Teho being far less viable to where he was before, 13-11 to Gen.G on this one on the Ascent, and then the Icebox in the end on Paper X's pick, they absolutely slammed him 13-3. But, we are seeing again, Patman is here on a full-time basis, really, with Mindfreak nowhere to be found for the moment. But Gen.G, they got the job done. They move on. Look, Paper X, the train has come to an end for now. I think that, the reality was that Gen.G were always going to be favourites here, but I think people had expected Paper X to put up a bit more of a fight. They are now, as FNS makes very clear, in the 1-in-1 bracket here for the Swiss stage, and that means their next series is absolutely critical. And the other big series of yesterday, of course, was Sentinels versus Billy Gaming, trying to get their revenge for FNS or whatever from back in the day. But look, Sentinels had the best possible run really on paper. You never really know what Chinese teams are going to turn up to the tournament. And even though the Chinese teams are very impressive on occasion, you never really, are convinced what version of that team is going to arrive to the international tournament. Sometimes the teams look really good domestically. They'll beat Edward, then they'll come to the internationals. It won't be quite as strong. Still, these teams and players don't have quite the international experience that others do. And therefore, that's, one of the reasons why Sentinels would have been more excited, really, about the bracket that they had. I mean, they ended up playing Wolves and Bilibili Gaming. Look, the Chinese team's still excellent and they'll only continue to improve, but I don't think they could have asked for a better run, hypothetically. And there were some good moments in this series. Look, Sentinels know that they will need to play better when they play better opposition as the tournament goes on. They'll need to be executing in a more kind of consistent way, but we saw Zekken and Zelsis in a 2 versus 3 right at the end here. They got the kills they needed. They left Neff in a 1 versus 2, and there was nothing he could do at the end of it. Zekken takes him down with the Raze ultimate, 13-9 in the end on the final map of the series on the Lotus. There was a couple of moments near that Bilibili will live to regret. They had their opportunities on the final rounds, but they collapsed in the end because they honestly gave it a really good go. They won the Icebox 13-9 on their pick. We then went to a Sunset, right? Because, of course, Sunset's back in the map pool, a map that Sentinels very much like historically, certainly when Tender's on the team. They won that one 13-5. Zekken with a great map here, 20-8. And then they went to a final map, Lotus, where, BLG started so strongly. They won the first half 7-5. Then it was a very tight game up until like round 19. It was then 10-9 in obviously BLG's in Sentinels' favour, but it was really close. And then in the end, Sentinels won the last couple of rounds. So, commendable work from Bilibili Gaming, but Sentinels do move on and they qualify for the playoffs. So I think Sen capitalised where they needed to. In many respects, I think it's not bad at all to win series in this fashion, right? You don't necessarily want to dominate your series, certainly in the early stages, because the more matches you play on LAN, the more maps you play, and Sentinels have played a fair few already, the more you learn, the more you improve, the more you understand, okay, what does this meta look like on LAN? How do we need to adapt individually? That can potentially help you down the line. So I think the Sentinels will need to clear some things up, sure, but right now, they'll be satisfied with their couple of days' work. Sassy's happy about it. Sentinels made the playoffs. Even now, of course, he's with MIBR, he's still got a soft spot for that organisation. As Bang says, GG's Bilibili 2-0 or 2-1. GG well played. Messy win, but a win is a win. They played well, punished our mistakes, which to be fair at times they did. So, these are the qualifiers. Gen.G went to 2-0, they made it. Sentinels went to 2-0, they made it. G2, Fnatic, RRQ, XLG. Those are the other two teams of the playoffs, and the final two teams, well, that still remains to be seen. Sentinels say only one team can take down Gen.G. Could it potentially be Sentinels? Now, of course, in the next round, we're not going to see that game yet because it will be a number 1 seed versus a number 2 seed because the number 1 seed, RRQ, and of course G2 and XLG and Fnatic, they get to choose who they play first. So, Sentinels versus Gen.G is not possible until at least the second round, but who knows, it may still be possible at some point because these teams that have made the playoffs already automatically, they haven't had any practice yet on LAN. Okay, they've had practice behind the scenes, but not really what they might have wanted and what some of these other teams have done over these last few days. So this is where it stands right now. Gen.G and Sentinels qualified. Gen.G maybe more impressively, plus 32 round count overall, certainly after their dominant win against MIBR. That was how it went. Paper Rex are 1-1. Obviously, we've got Bilibili at 1-1. Today will determine the other 1-1 teams and the two teams that are going to be eliminated completely, right? So 2 more games to come. Heretics play Wolves. That's the draw in the next rounds. And then it's Liquid versus MIBR. So that's the way that it's going to play out. The loser of those two teams respectively will go straight home from the tournament. I mean, look, if MIBR play like they did the other day, they are going home. Liquid with Nats back in, I think it gives them a chance. I might actually take Liquid in a little 2-1 there. And then Heretics Wolves, I'm expecting Heretics to bounce back. I mean, they got crushed so badly by, of course, Paper Rex that it was a big surprise. But yeah, I think maybe they can get the job done there. But Wolves were commendable against Sentinels as well. I think that they'll put up a decent decent fight against Heretics, but Heretics should have a little bit too much gas left in the tank. Covered a final Scrimbux. We saw, of course, that it was Redux giving his thoughts the other day on the Qubit situation, the fact that none of the teams that are out there for Masters want to scrim them because they're afraid they're going to leak information to Sentinels. And to be fair, like, I get it, right? I mean, the thing is, Redux is also their official substitute now. So let's say in a hypothetical world, Redux had to sub in for Sentinels, then, you know, obviously you'll have played scrims against that guy, and he's not exactly not going to tell his teammates what to look out for based on those scrims. So it's one of those unfortunate situations where the Qubit Academy may be very morally upstanding, but if you're another team, it's like, why would I even take that risk of scrimming these guys right now? But if you're Crew Esports, you're not even there, then sure, do what you want. And they're up 15-4 on Sen Academy, which is pretty impressive going, I would say. And we also had Lev scrimming EG. Nice to see at least Lev getting some more scrims in, and at least them winning one, because that was a little challenge to even find not that long ago. But very much interested your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.